I think we'll go ahead and get started. I just put in the chat box a link for everybody to take a look at. This webinar today is a follow-up to the 2022 ICM Peer Exchange that we did with NOCoE, with Bob and Neil being an important part of the planning for that, and April being a participant and key presenter for that. This is an opportunity to give a few updates on where the ICM stuff has been from the federal side since then, to hear some updates from April on where her site is at and what's going on there. Again, I encourage you to take a look at the link in the chat box to get more information from more sites in there. And we're going to continue to do these ICM updates through 2024 as well. So again, as I mentioned, we'll three speakers today. Neil Spiller with the Office of Operations at Federal Highway will be speaking first. Then Bob Sheehan, who you see on your screen, with the ITS Joint Program Office will be speaking second. And then April Wire, the Assistant TSMO Division Manager and Operations Branch Manager at Maricopa County of Department of Transportation, will be doing the update there at the end. Everyone is muted throughout. But if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or ask to be unmuted, and we'd be happy to do questions at the end, or type them in the chat box, and we'll monitor at the end. And again, I'll looking to keep that chat box open because I think we're going to be sharing some links, and I'll post them in there for quick access. So thank you again to our speakers, and Neil, I'll turn it over to you first.
Okay, very good. I should be there. There I am. Thank you, everyone. Neil Spiller. I'm with Federal Highways Headquarters, Washington, D.C. I am the ICM Program Manager and have been for a number of years now. Ironically, Bob Sheehan, who's on the call, and I share the same wall, so we sit back to back on the days that we're in. Apparently we're in every other day from each other, but when we are both in the office, ironically, in this big building, we sit right across from each other. So where do we stand? Where does Federal Highways stand on ICM? A large part of our time in the past couple of years has been beefing up and making robust our online set of tools and documents and presentations about ICM. I'm going to share my screen in just a little while and take you to that website and how to get some of those resources. I spend about half my time telling audiences what ICM is not, because we want to make sure that from the federal large picture standpoint, that we understand what Federal Highways ICM program is and isn't. And I think it's easier to start with what it isn't. And as I said before, I spend some time with audiences explaining this. Integrated corridor management is not day-to-day management of the system, and it is not a detour around any and all incidents that may be out on the highway. It is, in our belief, it is pertinent and relevant to the major trunk highway that would be the main spine or the main vein through a corridor, and that corridor would have numerous sub-arterials and local streets to be able to absorb the impact if there was something to happen on the main corridor. So I say it's not day-to-day operations, because when ICM is initiated, there's a lot that could go on in the back. There's a lot of stakeholders that could make changes in the background, and a lot takes place, and it can, because of the decision support system, the DSS, can click on automatically to once the ICM manager decides that there is an incident that's worthy of ICM deployment. Traffic signals could start changing. HOV lanes could start opening up to all vehicles. Some one-way streets might close, others might open as one-way streets. I mean, there's a lot to take place, because the purpose is to relieve the pressure that's going to come from when a major incident, an atypical incident on the order of once a week, twice a week, maybe 3 times a month, happens, such that the main corridor freeway is down, and will be down for a number of hours, or at least is impacted severely for a number of hours. And this could be anything from a truck overturn to hitting an overhead gantry, to a weather-related condition, to another kind of a bad accident, even a weather event like sand and smoke blowing across the highway for over a period of time, something that would shut down that large facility such that all of the numerous adjacent and subordinate facilities around it have to take place. I often liken ICM to a balloon that is at nominal inflation. And then if something happens, that balloon needs to be inflated even more to account to allow for these other subordinate roadways to help out. And these would be the adjacent arterials and such, the stakeholders that we call them, that would be available. ICM is not for everybody. We believe that it is for the top 40, maybe the top 50 MPOs in the country, because it is dependent upon, in an inverse way, congestion. And so you need certain qualifications, if you will, or candidacy for ICM to even exist. And that probably only happens in the top 40 most congested MPOs in the United States. It's not going to happen on a single rural highway out in the middle of proverbial nowhere that doesn't have adjacent arterials to absorb that. It's not going to happen when there isn't congestion, isn't major congestion at least. And I know that's probably an oxymoron in a lot of places, but if something were to happen on a major highway that doesn't carry a lot of congestion, and so people have to, by chance or by knowledge, use the side roads and the arterials, and they can do that because there's available capacity, then again, an ICM is going to be less impacting. The trouble with all this is in presenting this to our users and our customers and our leadership, and telling them, well, ICM is working behind the scenes, you just don't see it. And I can't explain to you that if a truck overturns on a highway and things are going to be out of whack for 4 to 6 hours, that 4 to 6 hour delay is going to be less of a delay for the actual user, who may experience a half an hour to 45 minute to an hour delay getting around it or through it, but they're not going to experience the whole 4 to 6 hour delay. That's of little comfort to the driver, but it is the message, unfortunately, that we can deliver. A train wreck happens, and it's a horrible event, but you're trying to tell people there's a little bit of a bright side in that we're going to have a fast cleanup, and that we're going to reroute other trains around it, and we're going to get back to normal as soon as we can and clean up that train wreck. It does come with hurt. It does come with injuries. It does come with repercussions to economy and such. So the messages are hard for us to tell our leadership, and that's why I think that we need some tools to do that. So in the order of trying to save a little bit more time, let me go to that first. We do have what I think is, I'm going to try and share my screen here. And it looks like this. Are we now? Let's see. Do we now see my website?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, so this is the Office of Operations website. Oh boy, I don't know if I can do this because my picture seems to be right in the middle of where of what I want to click on. I don't know how to move this picture around. Oh, here we go. Click and grab. Okay, so this is the Office of Operations website, and if you look up in this right-hand corner, you'll see program areas as a drop-down menu. And if you click on program areas, we will come down to corridor traffic management, and we need to click on that, and we need to hit the go button up here to make it go. And if that worked, you should be now looking at a page that says corridor traffic management. And this page has all of these resources available to you regarding ICM. Just to go over a few of them, there's the newest one is these 6 videos. I'm going to talk about those separately in just a moment. So let's move on to the second one. This is a short video, about 8 minutes long, about how to make the case to the executive leadership of what is ICM and how does it work and how does it benefit. So this would also be to kind of layperson executives on a town council, a mayor, and that kind of group who might not know the lingo and would need to understand what is ICM and explain it to them. Here's a flyer that can be used as a handout. What is integrated corridor management? These are documents, major achievements and findings that give us support for what's happened. A lot of this is written about the demonstration projects in San Diego and Dallas that we talked about and began way back in 2013, Bob, I think, something like that.
Yep.
Here's other primers: mainstreaming ICM. This is a very interesting one. This is a one-page document called 10 Attributes of a Successful ICM. It probably should read 10 Attributes of a Candidate ICM site. Let me see if I can click on that. And are we now looking at it? Hello?
We are.
Okay. So the 10 attributes of a successful site actually should be the 10 attributes of a candidate site. You'll see the number one attribute is significant congestion. You have to have a bad problem in order to apply ICM to fix it. Institutional support, infrastructural availabilities, multimodal, a data hub that is a decision support system that kind of works in the background, procurement, readily available alternative transit options. That's a 50-50 proposition, because transit, we found out, other than buses, certainly transit can't move on a dime. And in the case of a daily occurrence or a 4 to 6 hour occurrence, the transit community, and I'm talking about subways and metros and rail, are not going to be able to be flexible enough to react in a matter of half an hour or an hour and then return 6 hours later. But that's not to say that you can't have bus bridges and things like that. So that can exist. Optimization of these existing systems and public engagement and open-mindedness for change. So this document, oh boy, now if I click off of this, I hope I don't lose all of you. Let me try. How about I stop sharing? Let's just do that. Okay. So you saw some resources there on that operations website that many of them are available to you for you and your customers to either learn about or learn more about ICM. There's one in particular that I want to highlight, and that is, I'm going to share the screen, this guy right here. So this is so new, it has not been posted on that website, although the website that we just looked at does allude to these 6 videos. But this particular flyer, which advertises it, is so new, it has not been released yet. And I can't send it to you. However, if we all pretend that you didn't hear that, you could do a screenshot right now and take a screenshot of it. And therefore you would have it in your stead. And what this is the newest product that we have. It is 6 videos, which follows the development of ICM in a fictitious corridor called Alligator City, in a fictitious county called Oconahachie County. And it begins, as it says, from start to finish. Number 1, what is integrated corridor management? Number 2, how does it work? Number 3, what's the DSS behind it? Number 4, what are some strategies for building success over time? Number 5, what are some defining characteristics, again, that speak to the candidacy of it working? And number 6, how do we evaluate it afterwards to see that it has in fact worked? So let me stop there, and I don't know if there's any questions for now or for later, but I hope that gives you an overview. We are obviously available and willing to come to your site, region, MPO, and have a discussion with you. But I can urge you to look at, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Just getting over a bit of a cold. So, but there's a lot of resources, I think, on that website to get you a head start on what it is. Maybe print out some flyers that you can hand out to your customers or take to a meeting with you. And if you want to talk to me about which ones might be most appropriate for which type of event, I'm certainly available to do that too. Bob is too. So let me stop there and yield my time and back to Adam, and hope that gave you a pretty good rundown of where we stand with ICM.
Thanks so much, Neil. That's fantastic, and thanks for the updates on those resources. They're in the chat box there. For anybody who wants to take a look, I encourage you to do so. Next up, Bob Sheehan, who will be giving us an update on a few other ICM topics. Bob?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Go on video real quick. I'll do the same thing as Neil. So hello, everyone. Again, can you see me? Because I cannot see my own video.
Yep, we see you perfectly.
So real quick. Okay, so I'm pretty excited that when what I cover is consistent with what Neil covers, and again, we share a common wall in our office. And so what I was wanted to do was highlight some of the ongoing initiatives, there's a very focused program, project, or general part of ITS research that we're doing that supports the concepts of ICM and that everything Neil covered. To start with, we recently had an update to the ITS architecture, so ARKit. It's on current version of 9.2. There's a webinar, I believe, next week. I can find the date and confirm it and share it to give an update on what that 9.2 has, because it has things that are included in the rest of this list: multimodal efforts, traffic, other regulations that are embedded into the architecture to support the ongoing approach for interoperability, integration, and really the core of TSMO and TSMO research for years, being more active in your management of the transportation system and more integrated in the system. So that's number one. Number two, we continue to update and maintain and develop standards and specifications for ITS. I highlight the two parts just because we recognize the importance of standardizing the interfaces between systems and services, and not just necessarily a standard per se, such as TMDD. But that is an example of one. We're working on the update to TMD, currently called Next Generation TMDD, with the community of stakeholders for that update. In addition, there are dealing with whether it's the ATC or coordinating with other parties such as ITE and SAE for work on connected intersections. We're also continuing to work on multimodal specifications as best as we can, finding out what the best approach is to engage and support the development of those specifications that deal with mobility services or integration of mobility providers. Typically, most people recognize that as GTFS and the variants of GTFS. You have things called mobility data specification, general GBFS bike, or GOFS. But there are various specifications that are on the service provider side. Another key part that people are aware of are the efforts at the DOT to research and deploy and evaluate different types of data exchanges. Consistent with the TMDD, this would be those data elements that would be available for use by other third-party providers. The first one was Brooks' own data exchange over the last few years. I can't see the chat, so Adam, if you see something, please let me know if I have to stop and answer a question. Works on data exchange, and that's continued. And this really addresses what Neil's point was. Work zones are somewhat predictable, but the other elements that are non-predictable and consistent with what the purpose for what ICM is. So weather-based data exchanges, non-recurring events, other mobility-oriented data exchange that deal with, again, the mobility services. And that's where we go to the next step, which is we're continuing to do our research for the multimodal efforts, including transit, freight, and logistics. If you go to the site that Neil initially showed, I believe it's in the chat pod, you see the list of resources for ICM. 5 to 8 years ago, we did some basic papers to look at what integration and integrated operations means when you consider other stakeholders. In that case, we were trying to evaluate what it looked like when you had other agencies involved. In this particular case, like who's missing from any ICM discussion, so you can consider their needs, their impact on or from any ICM event. And you can see there's a number of different operators or stakeholders or partners that could be involved. Neil also mentioned decision support. So my office continues to partner with Neil's office and other offices within the DOT to advance our efforts to better develop or support the analysis, modeling, and simulation through research on methodologies, data sets, guidance, anything to update the large volume traffic analysis toolbox. But this area also includes artificial intelligence, and that's another area that we started our work on a few years ago. A lot of states and localities are investing resources and projects on AI. TISMO being a key area for AI research. And now it's a broad term because there's so much involved there, where you have one application that may focus on incident detection or an isolated application, or something more complex that gets to that concept of decision support at a larger ICM type level, where you're considering the impact on all parties involved in that corridor, not just the individual agency operating one facility. And to support that work, people may be aware of a recent executive order on AI that was published probably within the last month or even sooner. And then that is, we are now taking that as direction for developing our research efforts, coordinating with all the offices within the US DOT, Neil's office, and all the other modal administrations. Again, but this goes back to, in my mind, it still goes back to the initiative of what ICM was, is TISMO in that integrated environment. So Adam, thank you for posting the ARCA website. That's very helpful.
Bob, thank you so much. Really appreciate the update and walking us through all the different tools and activities that are out there supporting ICM. One note about the ARC ITE website is outside of ICM, it's used quite a bit by our students who do both a transportation technology tournament and a contest we do to send students to TRB every year. They get a full training on the ARC ITS website before going through a concept of operations that they are creating as part of the tournament that we do. So that website is not only valuable for what you talked about, but a huge teaching tool that we continue to use.
We're trying to update the tools often now, and so any feedback you have or students have, please share, because we want to make sure it's best suited for that type of application. Obviously, a deployer, it's a resource. But I'm really happy to hear that. It's one of the first things I used back in '97 as part of my curriculum for class, was like the emerging architecture. So
yeah,
and
great.
I just
get that feedback. I know the feedback we receive from the students is that's the best starting point for them as they start to approach a real world transportation project. They certainly are full of ideas, and their education is phenomenal, but it's a real practical tool for them. So next up, we have April Wire from Maricopa County Department of Transportation. April's going to give an update on where her site is at, and go ahead.
Hello. So I am going to give you guys an update on our Loop 101 mobility project, and just to give you guys a refresher on that project in general. It was part of the ATCMDD program. I think it was the last year that it was awarded. We've been working on this project, I think, since early 2020, late 2019. This project is kind of complex in the sense of it has really 5 projects built into one, focusing on ICM in general. We had a deployment around the Cardinal Stadium for adaptive system, which we've already done, completed on that. We are working towards installing connected vehicle devices along our Scottsdale trolley route in the city of Scottsdale area. We've incorporated adaptive ramp metering along our interchanges that touch the Loop 101 corridor. And then some other pieces is a mobile application and a DSS solution being deployed as part of this project. So regarding the DSS system itself, that's where we are currently today. So just wanted to give you kind of an update on what we've achieved so far. And so since our last update, we worked on hosting a 2-day in-person DSS workshop here in the Phoenix metropolitan area for our partners to better understand what DSS solutions are in place today. Since our work in 2020, a lot has changed in that space. I feel like a lot of technical advancements have been made. So we just wanted to share with our partner agencies on what does a real DSS system look like at the end of the day as we move forward with procurement of our system. So after the workshop, I think it came to fruition that we needed to update our concept of operations. So there was kind of a refresh to our concept of operations that's posted on our project website. You can find it there. And then also we recognized that we needed to regroup with our agency partners in understanding what plans needed to be created as part of that DSS, the deployment plans, the actions, workflows that could be implemented into a DSS system and define that further. So we are regrouping with our partner agencies now to understand what the needs are as far as resources to help better deploy those plans, figure out what signal timing plans need to be developed or technology to push different DMS messages automatically onto the signs related to the DSS system. And then also another piece that we're working in parallel is making sure that our existing data warehouse is reliable. We've upgraded a lot of our different servers and whatnot and making advancements on that side to make sure that the different data sets that are going to be feeding our DSS system are reliable as we move forward with that deployment. So as far as the DSS, we are currently working with our Arizona Department of Transportation partners on that procurement and moving that forward. So we're planning on having our RFP posted probably the first quarter of 2024. So that is progressing quite nicely. We're finally getting to a point where we will see the DSS system come to fruition. So that's kind of where we are with this project. I think a highlight is these types of projects related to technology and such a large corridor, because the Loop 101 corridor in the Phoenix metropolitan area is 61 miles, so it's quite large. They get very complicated. Technology is advancing very quickly, and we're trying to stay on top of it. I think a big effort in the last year has been just refreshing our agency partners on what the project is about, because there's been a lot of changing faces at the organizations, sometimes with just different labels as far as positions, but then other times completely new people that have come into new positions at our partner agencies. So there's the educational component associated with that to make sure that they have complete buy-in as we move this forward. But we're making great progress and hope to see the DSS come to fruition in early 24. So I'll pass it back to Adam.
April, thank you so much for the update. If anyone has questions for our 3 speakers, please go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat box. As I mentioned, we're going to continue to do these updates on ICM. There'll be brief, quick webinars like this one, 30 to 60 minutes, asking our federal and local sites to provide updates. So stay tuned for those. I'll just show real quickly the first link in the chat box is to the Peer Exchange that was done in August of 2022, and just want to briefly show you for those who are unfamiliar with this, if you want to take a look at the link that's there and the resources that are available. These are the sites and what was discussed during that Peer Exchange. There's a similar opening done up here talking about ICM, defining it, organizing for ICM. And then really got into what the various sites have been learning around elements of readiness, and then decision support systems and technology enabling it there. So We also had a good discussion on preparing and how to know that you're prepared, which again, this report gets into in depth. So take a look at that and feel free to use that as a resource in addition to this webinar, which is being recorded and can certainly be shared when it's available in the next couple of weeks.
Adam?
Yes.
I'm glad you showed that last picture, page 7 from that agenda. I don't know if you can go back to it, because that's exactly what I was talking about. That's an oldie but a goodie. I think Bob and his crew, I think, developed that a couple of years before I came on board. But it not only explains how ICM is the best of all the parts that can be contributed by the stakeholders, but the paragraph above, it says ICM is neither nominal traffic management nor traditional incident response. And I'm gonna, okay, you can take it down now, but I'm going to talk about that for just a second. A couple examples come to mind, and let me hit them. I'm not going to name these states because I don't want to impugn anybody, but if you can imagine the most furthest western state where it's very cold and where eagles fly, called us one time and said, "Can you come talk to us about integrated corridor management?" And I said, "Sure. What kind of problems are you having?" Well, what they described to me was they have cities that are spaced apart 30 to 60 miles, and they're basically connected by long rural 2-lane highways. And I said, "Well, I'm not so sure that we can immediately help you, because if something were to happen on those highways," and we'll talk about what could happen in just a second, where's traffic going to go? Well, you have to go like 300 miles out of your way on either rural roads and in some cases dirt roads to get around that unique travel path. And I asked them, what kind of events cause this? And they said, "Oh, snow drifts and moose migration." And I said, "Well, I really don't know that that ICM is set up for that." So that's kind of at the far end of, and again, you have to be the right candidacy for ICM. And now let me switch gears and talk about a southeasterly state which talked to us and said, we're gonna raise a bridge over the highway, and the bridge raising is really gonna make a challenge for about 2 weeks, and then the whole project's going to be out 3 months while we clean it up. But for about 2 weeks, that highway is going to be closed as we try to span a new bridge over that highway. And I said, "Well, okay, this could be an ICM type of event, although it's really a maintenance of traffic event. Any project that comes along like that has an outlook should have a maintenance of traffic plan to say, well, how are we going to accommodate the fact that we're going to close down a highway for 2 weeks immediately, and then probably cause rubbernecks for another 3 months beyond that." So ICM may contribute to something like that, but to my knowledge, or to my preference, it's probably not a day-to-day ICM event. That probably still falls under the category of a traffic maintenance plan for a specific project. The third kind of event would be a special event akin to a football game or a parade or some kind of downtown shutdown, where again, I think a traffic maintenance plan by the organizers is certainly necessary, but there's certainly elemental parts of using other adjacent highways, changing the traffic signal timings, changing some roads from one way to one way in the reverse, that could be. So I'm not eliminating excuse me, I'm not eliminating those last two as ICM type of events, but I'm pointing out that ICM is really structured for when an atypical event hits you out of the blue, when that truck turnover happens 10 minutes ago and you realize that the highway is going to be shut down for 4 hours to 6 hours, or there's a truck hits an overhead gantry and the gantry falls and it's going to take cleanup over many hours. There needs to be something in place to account for that. And in our world of at the federal level, we view ICM as a couple to 3 times a month, very intermittent and irregular type of event that is when you need it, it's there. You know, when there's a fire, the fire station sits unused, except for when there's a fire, you need it and to help put out the fire. And I think that's what ICM. That's kind of the way that I try to describe it when I speak to groups. I'll stop there. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We're looking forward. I forgot to mention, looking forward, we are thinking about doing a study or a project that would look at ICM's kind of 2-decade anniversary. What have we learned in 2 decades from the beginning to now? What have the successes been? What have the challenges been? It's a project that we're looking forward to doing. I don't have a schedule out yet or a spend plan available to do it, but it's something that the ICM team here in HOP operations is looking to do. So we would like to come out with something that is akin to, happy birthday ICM. What have you delivered to us in the last decade and a half? Again, I don't have a time for that, but it's just letting you know that it may be out there on the horizon. Thank you.
Sounds like a great idea. Certainly something that many organizations could get behind, highlighting the benefits of ICM through the years. I haven't seen any questions in the chat box, and looking at our attendees, I know we have some ICM experts on there who I'm sure appreciated the updates, but perhaps don't have a question. So I think we'll let everybody go at the 40-minute mark. Thank you so much again to Neil, to Bob, to April for providing those updates. Take a look at all the information excuse me, that they provided that's there in the chat box. Please definitely, if you haven't already, review the Peer Exchange notes that provides a wealth of information on where the ICM locations were at about a little over a year ago. And stay tuned next year for some more updates from your ICM sites. Thank you again for joining the NOCoE webinar, and the recording will be out in our newsletter later this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.